What do you do when spring migration is peaking, but you're stuck indoors with a bad back? Here's a hint for you. Dustin's been living this one and found some unexpected upsides to birding from the couch.
Ever spot a wood duck peeking into a nest box and wonder what happens next? We're breaking down the full nesting cycle from the first egg to jump day and how you can follow along without ever lifting the lid. Join us now for our Hike Hearth Birding Podcast.
So, hey everyone, this week's question of the week comes from a bit of a personal place because we are grounded, literally. So, Dustin, yeah, womp womp. Dustin, our resident birder, has what exactly is wrong with you again?
I think I have a ruptured disc in my back and it's creating a whole sciatic nerve problem. So, I'm in the good place when I'm not sitting I have to be standing for a long time to get out of the bad place.
Yeah, so we have an inversion table that we have installed into our living room. And unfortunately, that's not really the best way to bird now, is it?
Coming to you from upside down on the inversion table.
Oh, that's what we should have done for this podcast. That would have been something. I bet you we would have gotten a lot of views for that.
Probably. It's crazy, dude.
So how does this pan into a question of the week for us? Well, it got me kind of wondering, what do people who may be in a position that they cannot get out during the height of spring birding season do when they are avid birders? Let's talk about this because it seems to me there would be ways around this, right?
Yeah, spring is prime time for birding, but it's frustrating when life gets in the way, whether it's injury, illness, caregiving, work, bad weather, travel, or just living in the wrong place. The thing I love about birding is that you can do it almost anywhere, out the window, from the car when you're driving. If you choose, it can be a really immersive activity.
So, Dustin, since you have been more or less grounded for the past couple of weeks, how have you been staying connected to nature and the beloved birds of our neighborhood? Let's put it that way.
Starting with the simple things, right? Watching feeder activity, observing the birds that I can see out my window, and noticing the behavioral changes. So not just seeing the bird and saying like, that's a robin, but really noticing the different ways that they're behaving at this time of year. Noticing different patterns from the house, even new songs calling. I try to keep a window cracked all the time so I can, bird by ear a little bit, even if I'm typing on the keyboard and that's where my primary focus is. And even if you can't get out, like you work in an office, headphones and AirPods are universally accepted nowadays. So it's really easy to put on, for example, some new age music. And oftentimes there's birds in the background and they're birds from all around the world. They're pretty tough to identify, but I was getting a massage for my problem last week and I called out a loon and heard some chickadees and some other things. So there's a way to bird in unexpected places and stuff too.
So time out. You were hearing birds like in the music being played at the massage therapist,
Yeah.
or you were hallucinating through pain and hearing
No, it was the
loons?
music in the new age soothing music that was playing in the therapist in the massage room.
All right. As your loving wife, I just felt the need to check in because you are on gabapentin. So
Well, it's not helping much, I'll tell you that much.
So that all sounds very insightful. I'm kind of wondering, since you have been more stationary than you're prone to be, and just for all of you viewing in the audience who are getting to know us through this podcast, Dustin is someone who is not good at sitting still. So this has been an exercise in patience for you, for sure. But since you have been more stationary, are there things about your birding hobby that have come to you that are not things that are usually immediately apparent to you?
Yeah, the change is that usually if I'm hiking, I'm out scanning the canopy, right? Keeping my eyes on the skies. So I guess I've been keeping my heart in the wild a little more than my eyes in the skies lately. So I'm glad we have both options there. But instead of trying to spot movement up high, I've been looking at the movement down near our nest boxes and feeders and things like that, and noticing subtle things like behavioral changes, repeated flight paths for birds, even when they're coming into the feeder, where are they coming from? Are they going back to the same place? And even how the birds interact when they don't know that they're being watched. So I've seen in the last 10 days or so, robins dancing and chasing each other around on the street in early courtship behavior. Like they kind of bounce around and fly up in the air and come down. It's really fun. And I've been seeing mourning doves chasing each other around like young lovers. Usually the female's running away and the male's chasing her, that kind of thing. Which is really, really great to see that courtship stuff, because we know that there's going to be some nesting around in the area. And we like to know that our habitat supports that. So it's great. And it's made me more aware of sound, honestly. So when you're stationary, your ears start doing a little bit more work. You begin to recognize individual calls or changes in tone and the alarm behavior of birds, all just by listening. And I keep a window cracked, like I said, so maybe I can focus on my team's meeting primarily, but maybe I'll hear a titmouse outside the window or something.
Okay, so I have to say, I've been smiling while you're talking because Nama is in the background. As you viewers can now see on screen, a little bit of the behind the scenes of this podcast. That is Dustin's best pal in the world, and she is trying to listen intently to everything he's saying, but she's falling asleep at the same time. Okay, so everything you're saying makes sense. And I kind of wonder, do you think birders sometimes overlook that part of audio? I know it's important for birders to hear bird calls and stuff like that, but do you feel that when you're out being active in the woods and stuff that a birder might overlook, just paying attention to the sounds around them a little bit?
Not really. When you're out actively birding, you're really engaging all of your senses most of the time. But different birders and different people prioritize senses a little bit differently. I'm not a super auditory person. I can't sing. I never played a musical instrument. I'm athletically oriented, and I favor my sight as a photographer. Mm-hmm. I'm a visual person. But some people really easily fall into the auditory part. Mine gets dull in the off season, and I even kind of have to relearn some bird calls every year. So at this time of year, even if I can't get outside, it really makes sense for me to review certain birds on my apps, things like that. I like to usually take 5 or 10 bird calls and refamiliarize myself with them and focus on just them. And it might be 5 or 10 that I know that I want to buttress in my auditory memory, and another 5 or 10 that I don't know well that I want to hear this year.
Okay. So you're more visual. Do you think that there's birders out there who focus more exclusively on listening? Is there such a thing as listening birding?
Absolutely. There's some people with visual deficits that might not be profoundly blind, but even older people might not be able to see the tree swallows swooping over the lake, but they can hear them. So that's really important. But as a birder, you start to get tuned into that wherever you go. And once you're hearing every bird sound, no matter where you are, that's how you know you're hooked into birding for sure. So it's not just background noise, right? It's bird ID, it's clues, it's territory mapping. Some birders specialize in this. I've known folks, especially those who are blind or visually impaired, who are just phenomenal birders because they know hundreds of calls. There's a gentleman named Juan Pablo Culasso, a blind birder from Uruguay, who is known to be able to identify over 2,000 bird calls.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. And the biodiversity down there, helps that. But 2,000 is a crazy number, but it goes to show a big part of your brain can be reprogrammed to auditory clues when it's available, like it is for a blind person. And there's a program called Birding by Ear and Beyond by Donna Posant, which empowers visually impaired individuals to engage deeply with nature through sound. And the best part about that program is it doesn't just work for blind people, it can work for everyone.
I'm actually a little inspired by this because I have terrible vision. It is no joke that when I take my glasses off in our house, if I forget where I put them down, there are moments where I can't find them, and that becomes a literal vision quest for Dustin, right? Okay, so I think that's really cool and really amazing that there's different ways to approach a hobby like this. But, for folks that are visual like you, are there any ways to still stay connected to birding from home if you're in some kind of circumstance where you just can't get out and embrace your hobby out in the wild?
Absolutely. So there's essentially digital birding, right? Get out your app and poke through the birds that you know and look at some of what they are like and other birds, or look at birds from a different geography to get yourself familiar with those if that is what intrigues you. But there's also some fantastic live stream cameras like ones from Cornell Lab and explore.org. You can watch everything right now from bald eagle chicks hatching to owls feeding at night, literally in real time. It's amazing. I have live cameras in my nest boxes so I can poke in at them, which is great for me. I wish I could share that in a live stream, but they're battery operated cameras and I don't want to share my Amazon account with everyone, but maybe someday. We have aspirations for that. I also like digging into the data a little bit more when I'm not able to physically bird. So I'll take a look at the migration maps. I love the bar charts. If you go to eBird and explore and go to the bar charts, you can put in your location and it will show you all of the birds in your area with a graph that shows when the birds arrive based on week of the month. So every month has 4 bars and you can see the Eastern Phoebe tends to show up first week of April. Mm-hmm. And then you can look for when to expect the birds that you know are coming back. So I know, for example, 2 weeks ago, we started to see tree swallows back on the lake, but just in very small numbers before April 1st. And then the night of, I think it was April 9th into April 10th, a big group must have come in and all of a sudden there were tons of tree swallows. So it was good to, see what we expected and know that everything's on track, so to speak.
Yeah, I think it's amazing too. I just noticed the tree swallows the other day, and it's weird to me. It's like they weren't here, and then all of a sudden they were here. They swoop over the lake that we live on, and it's just... They are the most amazing acrobats. I could sit and watch them for hours.
Yeah, I think the tree swallows and the barn swallows are my favorite birds.
Yeah, they're really fun.
So between the cameras and the digital tools, you can really stay in tune with birding and what's happening, even if you're sidelined for a bit. Okay.
So if someone is stuck at home, but like you are right now, but starting to feel better, which I hope you will be doing soon, or else... I don't know what we're going to do, folks. If Dustin doesn't get back on his feet, we're relying on me at that point for birding. And I'm good at picking out mourning doves and pigeons, but that's about it.
No one wants that.
No. Hey, mourning doves have a place. They do.
Yep.
I love them dearly. But anyways, so let's be optimistic. As you start feeling better, or someone in our audience who's sidelined right now, who's hoping to get back into the swing of things, what kind of things could you be doing, or could someone be doing to start prepping to get back into birding?
Yeah, it's a great time to go through your gear. For example, I've been cleaning my lenses, checking my batteries and my battery supplies for the cameras, organizing my field bag, little things that help save time when you're out in the field, because if you're doing those things out in the field, you're literally taking away from your birding. So, when it's dark out and you're home and you're down, get your gear ready so that you can maximize your time in the field. And I've been planning where to go once I'm mobile, checking the eBird hotspots, seeing what's around, seeing what migration trends are popping up, and keeping my eye on Birdcast and the hummingbird forecast, which will be coming soon. I might be able to hobble around the kitchen and make some hummingbird nectar, because next week will be the time to fill the hummingbird feeders for us as well. If you live in the mid-Atlantic or southward, you might be seeing hummingbirds already, but if not, any day now. So get your feeders filled out there. And I think setting small goals is really key. Maybe just visit one spot a week or find a spot you can drive to if sitting's not a problem, as it is for me. And, set small targets to start with to see like 5 new arrivals per week or something like that. Helps you be connected, helps you be in tune with what's happening, gives you something to look forward to all the time.
All right. So for anybody who's watching who might be a little sidelined or just not able to get out there and do birding like you'd want, I hope this was a little inspiring. Dustin, do you have any last words of inspiration for the audience?
Yeah, whether you're grounded for a few days or the whole season, there are still so many ways to be connected to the birds around you. If you're easing back in, maybe it's a good time to grab your bins, sit by a window, and just listen.
So in our last podcast episode for last week, we started our introduction to the wood duck nest boxes that Dustin manages through our local conservation program. And we're going to continue that, as we said, because there's lots of things to talk about. And where I'd like to start for today is, let's say that someone sees a wood duck checking out a nest box. Maybe it's on their property, or they're strolling through a nature preserve on a beautiful spring day and they happen to see a wood duck and it's right near a nest box. What happens next?
Yeah, this isn't just for nest box owners, right? Many nest boxes get installed by the departments of natural resources in your state, conservation groups, or parks. Even if you don't have your own, you can still observe and enjoy the season. So we're going to talk about this in sort of aligned with the phases of wood duck nesting behavior. And the laying phase takes about a week or two, but they lay 1 egg per day early in the morning, and they really only go into the nest box for like 15 or 20 minutes while they lay an egg. And at this time of day, the hen spends very little time in the nest box. They'll fly in, lay, and then leave quickly. And at this time, the male is often nearby. So look for the signs of this behavior. If you see a male wood duck all by itself, kind of near the shore, hanging around in one space for 15 or 20 minutes, keep an eye on it. And I bet you'll see the female come out from wherever she was in the cavity and fly to him within 20 minutes or so. So that's a really good way to use like the context clues, so to speak, to see what's going on.
And so just to clarify, you wouldn't see her coming out of like a ground nest or a nest in the tree branches. It's always a cavity.
Always a cavity, but that cavity could be in a tree branch.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
So then the next phase is about 30 days. Once the eggs are laid, then she starts spending a lot more time in the nest box, full time. That clutch gets full after about 10 to 14 days of laying. She turns her attention to the nest box and starts staying in there full time, but only leaving 2 times per day to feed. And at this time of the cycle, the male has left. He's getting bored waiting for her, so he's not going to be around anymore. So now it's a little bit different. If you're taking a morning walk and you see a female nest box suddenly fly across the lake from a shoreline, that's a good sign that she's leaving the box for her morning rest. But she's not flying down and joining the male. She's flying clear across the lake. That's a good sign that she's already begun the incubation process. And now it's a bigger time window, but now you're within the 30-day range of her incubation. So hatching could happen anywhere from 1 to 30 days from then. But if you're in your morning routine and she's in her morning routine, you might see this multiple times during the month when that happens. And I've gotten very interested in this and have a nest box camera installed this season. And I started to actually map out when the hen comes and goes. So I have good nest box data from day 1 of egg laying up to she's just starting her incubation period now. We'll talk about the details of that later.
Okay. All right. So if someone is like observing a box from a distance, how can they tell when the hen is in that cycle? Like, what should they be looking for?
It's really just the time of day that you see that presence
Okay.
and whether the male is present or not. That if it's morning and you see the female and there's a male nearby, probably laying cycle in that first, 10 to 15 days of a, say, 45-day process. Then if it's an afternoon visit, and again, no male nearby, might still be, if it's in the afternoon, you might see the male and the female together because she's not on the nest at all. But once the incubation starts, you might see the female leaving in the morning, no male nearby, or leaving in the afternoon, no male nearby, and you might see her coming into her nest box. They typically like to rest, have a break by coming out of the box between, say, 2 and 5 o'clock is kind of the sweet spot. And they usually stay out for an hour, hour and a half at a time. So my tip is to walk the same route every day, take note of what you see in that activity. Then you can kind of piece together what you might have observed from casual observation. A good goal for casual birders is to increase your odds of seeing this by following a routine and increase your chances of seeing a jump day without disturbing the box. So if you do ever see a hen in the water below the box, that's a good sign that she might be starting her cooing process to draw her newly hatched ducklings out of the box. So if you ever do have that, you get lucky. Be silent and hide slowly, immediately. Crouch down behind some reeds or something and watch what she's doing. Because when she's circling right under the box, that means the ducklings might be jumping out any minute now. And that's really fun to watch when you catch it.
What happens if you startle her?
If you startle her, she probably would fly off and come back in 15, 30, 45 minutes later. The ducklings are reacting to her cooing call to draw them out. If they're not hearing that, they're not going to come out. But if that process has started and the ducklings are jumping out already, and then you startle her, she might swim away with the ducklings for a while. And then she might come back to look for the rest of the ducklings if she knows more in there. But there's definitely the chance that one could get left behind. So it's really critical to be silent and stealthy.
Okay, so that's the hands-off approach. But what about people like us who have a nest box or want to get a nest box or are planning to get a nest box? What would the active monitoring approach look like?
So first, for any beginner, start with Cornell's nestwatch.org website. They have a really good tutorial on how to do things ethically. So it includes a little certification quiz. You go through the material, you take the test. Great, quick and easy. Then weekly checks. The best time for your nest box is always check in the afternoon. They lay early in the morning, so avoid that. And roughly weekly is okay, right? Because if they start laying, even if they started laying the day after your last check, the next time you come 7 days later, there may be some eggs there. What to look for in the afternoon? If you find eggs, do an egg count so that you can back into a first egg date. That's an important data point to put into nestwatch.org. So, for example, let's say that you check a nest on April 5th and there's 5 eggs in it. You can then back into it and say, all right, this fifth egg was laid today, April 5th, then an egg on April 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st was the first egg lay date. At this point, eggs will be cool to the touch because they're not being incubated yet, and there's usually little or no feathering of the nest. The hen isn't really pulling her down out and using much of it to cover the nest. Usually. Every hen's a little bit different though. Then for later checks, you can use the same technique if you find more eggs. So again, if we used April 5th as our egg lay date, we know at that point with 5 eggs, she's about a week away from starting incubation. So it's good to come back in another week. Once incubation begins, of course, the laying has stopped. And at this stage, there'll be more feathers around the eggs. They'll be warm to the touch. And all that extra down is helping to insulate the eggs while the hen is away. So going back to your records, you can also back into when her last egg was laid also. So using the example that we had earlier, you went on April 5th and there were 5 eggs. Let's say you came back a week later on April 12th and there were 10 eggs, but she was incubating. You can then say, all right, well, she laid egg 6 on the 6th, so forth to the 10th egg on April 10th. And if she's already incubating, it would seem like maybe April 10th was the last date. Then if you come back another week later and there's still 10 eggs, you know you were right because there was no subsequent laying. So if you come back a week later on April 12th and there's that couple of more eggs, then you know you weren't right the first time, but you can adjust accordingly and figure out what the last date was. So then once you know when the last egg date was, you know she started incubating, and that's a 30-day process, give or take a day or two on either side of that. So then you can start to estimate if you know, say, April 12th was the last egg date and the start of incubation. 30 days after that is May 12th. That's your target time for jump day. So around May 12th, you should be paying a little more close attention. And just prior to May 12th, if you see the nest leaving the nest, and just prior to May 12th, if you see the hen leaving the nest box in the afternoon for her normal break, that's a really good time to go for a nest check because near potential jump day, you could see active hatching. You might see eggs cracking with some ducklings partially hatched, or maybe by that time the whole clutch is hatched and they're just resting because it's a very tiring process breaking out of all those eggs. But if you do find active hatching, jump day is going to be tomorrow. Those ducklings are going to be hungry.
Okay. And if you find active ducklings in the box or anything hatching in the box, I assume you leave it alone.
Leave it alone, close it up, and get ready for tomorrow. Get ready for jump day.
Okay, so something you said caught my attention. So she's in there for 30 days?
Pretty much. Roughly 22 hours per day, every day, coming out just for about an hour break in the morning, a little after sunrise usually, and a little break in the afternoon, maybe between 2 and 5 o'clock, usually in that range.
So wait, what is she doing? She's just sitting on eggs for 22 hours a day for 30 straight days? What is she doing? Staring at a wall?
She's probably checking her nestgram for drakes or rearranging her down feathers for a good fit check. No, but seriously, she's in there deterring any predators who might come by or any interlopers looking for a nest cavity of their own, like squirrels or mice or other hens. She does a lot of preening, a lot of napping, and tending the eggs kind of incessantly, but that's an important process. She's in there rolling the eggs and turning them and rotating them from their position. So here in this picture of eggs, you can see, I think there's 11 eggs, and they're arranged in a nice, neat circle. Well, she moves some eggs from the outer part of the circle to the middle and the middle eggs to the outer, so they all get evenly incubated. Because if she does that, she'll have a higher opportunity of success of every one of the eggs hatching successfully. So she's in there doing all of that. And I can tell from the quiet times on my camera that when she does sleep, it's really only for about 40 minutes at a time. And we've talked about this about other birds, but wood ducks are a bird that are able to sleep unihemispherically. Do you remember what that is?
No, not even a little bit.
They literally can sleep with half of their brain alert and the other half of their brain sleeping. So they do this in situations where they need to remain partly alert, like in the presence of predators or sometimes in a group when they're all kind of resting out on the lake. But this is especially true during incubation. So basically, she's the ultimate multitasker. She's half watching, half napping, fully fabulous.
I'm so proud of her.
Yeah, or maybe she's just mentally reviewing her life choices that led her to a 23-hour-a-day egg sitting, or writing passive-aggressive poetry about her absent baby daddy.
I think that's exactly what she's doing. I don't know. I don't know. I'm a homebody, but even I don't think I could do 22 hours a day in my home for a month. Well, maybe.
Totally could.
I totally could do it. With the right books, I'd be all right. Yeah. Okay. So What is your advice for someone who may be watching this, may have found this on YouTube, and it's like their first year doing a wood duck box?
So be patient. You might not see everything, and that's okay. You don't have to obsess over watching for when they come and go, but try to be in tune with where the wood duck's favorite perches are. Sometimes they land on the same branch or the same trunk, same limb of a tree all the time. So take a look at that, 100 times a day or whatever. And eventually you'll see them there more and more. And it might not work the first year either. So be patient. Even if it doesn't happen, it doesn't mean the nest box is in a bad place. It just means another one was selected for whatever reason. But do track what you can. If you can get egg counts from a box you're monitoring, great. Track that hen behavior, date ranges. Definitely use nestwatch.org to record your stuff. But avoid over-checking. You don't need to go more than once or twice a week. Resist that urge to open the box too often. But do be ready to take advantage of the moment when you see the hen fly away. Because when you see her fly across the lake or something, you've got a little time before she's going to come back, and you can do a responsible nest check without disturbing anything at all. And be in tune with their sound, because they often fly away and make their wood duck whistle call, kind of an alarm. Sometimes when it's softer, it's more of like a call to the other wood ducks to let them know, like, I'm coming, and try to find their friends while they're out of the box for that period. And then, of course, be ready for jump day. When you know it's getting close, have a plan to watch from a safe distance. Prepare a blind if you can, at least a few days in advance. Put it out there so it's not just new that day and gets her guard up about anything. And make sure your camera is always ready. Full battery, ready memory card, all that stuff. And then lastly, enjoy the process. You're getting a front row seat to enjoy something many people never get to see.
Yeah. And if you miss jump day, think of it this way. You just helped wildlife conservation efforts, right?
Yep.
Okay. So you've gone through all of this information with our friends of YouTube who watch the podcast, and kind of given them some advice. I'm curious, what's going on in our wood duck boxes? How about you give us an update to what you're seeing and what's going on?
So I made this dorky Gantt chart.
I'm sorry. No, it's a joke. This is fascinating.
So that I could track kind of the fidelity of when the hen is laying her eggs.
Okay.
And when she starts to incubate full time, and when her normal daily breaks are once she does. And we're right at the transition point for that right now, because she's only just started incubating full time. So what I've done is mapped out the dates here. So on March 30th, I verified that there was one egg. A bold number indicates a confirmed egg count that I saw myself. A non-bold number is my assumption of when she laid that egg down the line, and some notes about when she came along. So in the beginning, she was coming pretty regularly in kind of the 6 a.m. to 6:30 range, but she had one anomaly out here, and then was in like the 6:30 and 7 o'clock range for laying each time. And then once the clutch started to get a little bit bigger, she started spending a little bit more and more time in the nest. So these are half an hour blocks. So she was spending between 30 and 60 minutes, then an hour and a half, then several hours. And I thought she was about to start incubating here on April 11th. But when she left in the afternoon, we had a snowstorm overnight, by the way, this night. She left in the afternoon and she feathered in the nest and covered them. I thought for sure she would be back. But then she didn't come back all night long until the following night around 6 p.m. And then I thought, oh, for sure, this is the full-time incubation period. She stayed overnight, but then she left in the morning, was gone all day, and came back at night again. So she had actually 3 nights here where she stayed overnight but did not start 24-hour incubating until just yesterday was her first day incubating full-time. And we can see her rest period was between 6 and 7:30, and I noted it here. She actually left at 6:04 and came back at 7:41. And then later in the day, I just added this. She had her rest time between 2:40 and 4:40 in the afternoon. So it'll be interesting to see if these rest periods start to be really consistent. But we're going to start seeing this Gantt chart mostly green for the next 30 days as we track towards jump day. We'll keep you updated.
So that's exciting. So her confinement has begun.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so that is all for today's episode, as well as an exciting update on the start of incubation for one of our mama wood ducks. How many do you know? I know you haven't been able to get out there very, very much. How many boxes probably have eggs in them?
I have 9 boxes deployed right now. Of the 3 that I've checked recently, only 1 has eggs, but there's several I haven't been to, so probably at least half of them do at this point.
Oh, very cool. All right, so we'll have lots of updates for you guys in the future. But before we head off on our next adventure, this is just a quick reminder that you can find Dustin's wildlife photography and links to all of our content channels on our website, hikeandhearth.com.
Yeah, we love being part of the nature lovers community on YouTube, so keep sharing your comments and your experiences out in nature, wildlife, and conservation. And if you're not already a subscriber, please be sure you join us.
Yep, and if you are on Substack, feel free to join our newsletter, Hike Hearth Birding. We will be expanding the information on there, especially putting in more detailed metrics on the NetsBox program. We are admittedly about a week behind in that right now. Dustin hasn't been feeling good, but that's okay. We're going to catch up, and it's going to be an exciting nesting season and birding season for sure. But with that said, Dustin, are you ready to send us all off for the day?
I sure am. Until next time, friends, keep your eyes on the skies and your hearts in the wild.
Bye, everyone.